My name is Heather Chandler, and I am the owner and publisher of the Green and Healthy Maine Homes magazine. And each episode, we chat with industry experts to help you learn about building healthy, efficient, and sustainable homes. And today, we're going to be exploring solar power and some options to access the financial and environmental benefits of owning solar, even if you rent or don't have roof space for your own solar panels. So I'd like to start by sharing a very special thank you to our annual Home and Energy Chat sponsor, Royal River Heat Pumps. They are a locally owned and operated company that is nationally recognized for heat pump excellence and is 100% committed to the highest standards of quality installations, service practices, and customer satisfaction. You can find them online at royalriverheatpumps.com. And now a little bit about us. Green and Healthy Maine Homes is dedicated to inspiring healthy, efficient, and future-ready Maine homes. In addition to these webinars, we also publish the Green and Healthy Maine Homes magazines. You can see some of our past issues here. And we produce an annual show, the Green Home and Energy Show, which just took place a few weeks ago in South Portland. That takes place in April, early April every year. You can learn all about all of these items, as well as check out our Green Homes business directory on our website, which is greenmainehomes.com. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our panelists today. Ryan Keith is the owner of Northeast Heat Pumps and Northeast Solar Trackers in Brunswick. He says he's been passionate about energy efficiency since high school carpentry classes, and he began installing heat pumps in 2008. After transitioning his own home to heat pumps, he wanted to explore solar energy, but his home's layout and tree coverage made traditional solar configurations not really practical. So he installed a dual access tracker, which we're going to learn a little bit more about today, which allows him to offset nearly his entire electric bill. His company has since installed 26 solar tracker systems for homeowners and businesses who are facing similar challenges. So welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
Next up, Matt Wagner is the owner of Upright Energy based in Knox, Maine, and the maker of Maine Solar Sheds, a fun collaboration with the Unity Amish community. Matt is a graduate of Unity College, and he has over 25 years of experience designing and installing solar projects of all types throughout Maine. So welcome, Matt. And lastly, Thomas Tutor grew up on a small island in Penobscot Bay with a year-round population of about 600 people. He joined Revision Energy in 2015 as a solar and heat pump design specialist. He has installed solar on his Portland home in 2019, making it net zero at the time. But then when he and his wife both started driving electric vehicles, his electric use obviously changed, and he is now going to be joining a member-owned community solar project to boost the output of his rooftop solar and be able to be net zero once again. So welcome, Thomas. Thank you again to all three of you, Ryan, Matt, and Thomas, for being with us today. I'm very excited about this topic, and I know that a lot of us, it really resonates for a lot of us, myself included. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Ryan to kick us off.
Thanks, Heather. We started installing solar trackers only about 2 years ago, and we had great success. We've had awesome performance, and what we were really trying to do was fill a void in the industry, because we do have some amazing solar companies out there, but like you had mentioned, there are houses that it just doesn't work for. Not that I didn't have a yard space, space, but my home sits on just over an acre, and I really didn't want to give up any of that lawn for ground mount system, because I too, utilizing heat pumps and now electric vehicles, needed more solar, and so that's why we got into the trackers, and they have been amazing. And so when there was nobody out there that really wanted to start installing, we decided to assemble a team that we had all the tools to do it. And so we did that, and there's been great response, and we're super excited and having so much fun putting them in. Um, I guess I'd like to start with the video, just so that people can maybe get a visual on what we do. We dig a very small 8x8 hole, roughly 4 feet deep to 5 feet deep. We fill that with a rebar cage and about 11 yards of 5,000 psi concrete. There's the cage. It's a 30-inch sonotube that holds our bolt cage that assembles our uprights. This lot here is about a 3/4 acre lot in Brunswick that you're looking at now. And again, they didn't want to utilize all their space in the yard, and so decided to go with a tracker unit. Those are 1-inch, 18 1-inch galvanized bolts. We double nut and Loctite everything. The units are they are engineered for 105 mile an hour winds. We assemble everything on the ground to make it quicker and easier. It takes us about 4 days to put a unit up in commission. There's a fixed, there's a finished unit in Brunswick as well. It's about 30 by 40, that unit itself. We do encourage the 48 panel because of the payback. It's kind of like buying in bulk. These units will provide anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 worth of power annually, with bifacial gain, as well as tracking the sun. We've boosted the amount of power they generate considerably compared to a flat panel. And here's a slide with our own comparison. So at our shop on Route 1 in Brunswick, we're oriented correctly. We have 40 flat panels up there, and you can see on the top graph, the orange is our dual axis tracker comparison to the blue is our fixed panels, and you can see the considerably more power. And again, our fixed array is really oriented perfectly with little to no tree loss. The wintertime is where we see a huge benefit because the tracker is able to keep perpendicular with the sun at all times. So it spins in the morning, it wakes up, it stows at night flat, and then in the morning it wakes up, finds the sun, and tracks it all day long at a perpendicular angle. So we really maximize. Then these panels are bifacial gain because we're just looking for light. And so on the backside of these panels, we get a great boost, especially in the wintertime. The snow reflects that boost. The other real big benefit is, with my fixed panels, I'm constantly cleaning them off after a snowstorm, which is kind of a hassle to get production. And whereas these panels actually, they dump the snow. Typically, the snow doesn't stick to them for more than an hour in the morning. Part of it being they heat up from the backside, and then the snow sheds off. The other, big benefit to the panels in the bifacial gain is it keeps the panels cooler. So at some point, panels typically get hot and they'll start losing energy. And roof systems, unfortunately, they're bolted down to the asphalt sometimes and metal, and so they can be considerably warmer in the summertime, which they lose energy. These panels are essentially a little bit more air cooled. One of the other huge benefits, other than the small lots that we're able to put them on, they're elevated. We don't see a whole lot of interference with, let's say, flying squirrels or things of that nature. Or if there's an issue, we're able to access both sides fairly easily with a ladder. The big reason that we kind of filled this niche was that as time goes on, we also install heat pumps and have done it for a really long time. We have 17 Ford Lightnings, 2 Chevy EVs, and a couple of EV cars. So we also have really good numbers on what these electric vehicles and heat pumps consume. We monitor them on a daily basis. And so as we move forward, our electrical consumption is going to go up and up. And a lot of times the roof space just isn't large enough, like my own home, which, it's an average size home, but I just didn't have enough room to go net zero. These units allow people to go net zero. The other thing that, with net metering right now, a lot of these units are able to cascade another, whether it be a vacation home or a son or a daughter or somebody, they're able to put that onto their cascading and net metering. And so they'll cover somebody else's power with any overages. One of the big things too is that we're in Maine is our energy consumption, our electrical usage is considerably higher in the wintertime when a lot of solar fixed arrays, don't provide as much sun because the sun is so much lower. So in the wintertime, when we really need that boost, the tracker provides that extra energy because we're running heat pumps more. Even electric vehicles consume more power in the wintertime with heaters and whatnot. So we were really looking to find a way to provide a lot more kilowatts per panel. The array doesn't take up much space either. A 30-inch sonotube, I literally weed whack around our bases. The grass grows perfectly. We have a couple gardens underneath the arrays. They're elevated enough so that the lowest point when it's tipped up in the wintertime can be 8 or 9 feet off the ground. So you can walk underneath these units. We don't have to worry about a hazard of children playing around these ground mount units. So there's a lot of benefits to them. But we really enjoy putting them up as well. They're fun, and I think that we're kind of gearing up to the future and the electrical usage that homes are going to start to require.
Great, thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome.
Question: looking at the slides, is the system on the roof the same size as the ground mounted system?
It is. So we equaled it watt for watt, so it's the exact same. We put it on the similar playing field, so it is exactly what the production is per panel. So there's no difference.
That's a really helpful graph. Thank you.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Matt and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. And nice job going over the ground mounted tracker options there, Ryan. That was a really good introduction to those. So I'm Matt Wagner. I've been doing solar, around Maine for a little better than 25 years now. Had a lot of experience with all sorts of different applications. And about 6 years ago, really started saying we're just going to do Maine solar sheds from now on, and stopped doing roof mounted systems and ground mounted systems that weren't Maine solar sheds. Not because it's the right answer for everybody. I think you'll find there's everyone kind of comes to their own solution on what works best for them. But we found that building these in a shop and delivering, 100% completed project really resonated really well with a lot of people, enough that it became a job, which is really cool. It's not all that we do, but it has become a pretty big part of what we do. So yeah, I'm going to go through just some of our pictures. I'm really looking forward to answering people's questions. I really enjoy talking to people. So I'm just going to go through some of the slides, but I also wanted to stop and say thank you to Heather and Rain for putting this together. It's a really phenomenal opportunity to talk to this many people. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. So this is a solar shed project that we built for really good friends of ours at Project Leap over in Farmington. And they have 2 of them similar to this. And they really wanted to put roof mounted solar on their building. It was engineered and designed by an architect to face south. And then during construction, they realized, they were going to put an asphalt roof on. And asphalt roofs, are a little bit harder with solar. The longevity of the roof isn't always as long as the solar. So people end up taking solar down and having to re-roof. And so they started talking about a main solar shed, and they ended up ordering 2, and we were able to design them, use the same siding to match their building. And they needed the storage space. They got their lawnmowers in this one. And between the 2 solar sheds, we offset, the entire building's energy usage. The building's heated with, I think they've got 3 heat pumps in each building. So that's just an example of one of the applications. Let's see what's our next slide. So people always ask about the inside and garages and storage. So this is a model that's also being used as storage. You can see the Enphase combiner over on the far wall with the electrical panel. So this is the Bigelow model. It's really the most common model that we build consistently. So here's our next slide. A lot of people are really surprised to see a 32 by 14 foot building with a 9.5 kW solar array on the roof driving down the road. But that is what we do. We build these completely in a shop. So we're not loading up human beings ourselves, tools, equipment, materials, handling materials. These buildings are built right in Unity. The solar is completely installed right in Unity. And one guy with a 1-ton truck picks them up and brings them statewide. Right now, delivery is free within 40 miles of Unity. A pretty basic building that's not super heavy. There's a couple different trucks that we deliver them with, but a light building, say a 24-foot building delivered to Fort Kent, Maine, I think the maximum cost is about $1,200, which is a major savings over the time it takes to move people and materials to a job site. Maine's a big state geographically, so these present an opportunity for people to get solar just delivered. It's a lot different. The applications for the buildings are just bewildering. The number of like crazy cool ideas that our customers have. This is a pretty basic building down in Union. They use this for their garden. It's actually a small organic farm. And this is just, their household garden. They use this to run the farm out of. They pack produce in it. That's been a pretty common one. Again, this is a pretty standard Bigelow with pine siding. The base building is just basically a shed. And then they really become, the sky's the limit beyond the base building. We've done some really, really unique buildings for folks. This is us at the Common Ground Fair. Maybe some of you guys have seen us there. We love it when people stop and chat. We've always got like 50-pound bags of carrots to feed kids and hang out. It's a kind of a reunion annually for all of our past customers. And maybe you guys are some of you are here. It's always great to see familiar faces. And then, so this is, the adaptations and applications for these buildings are pretty unique. This is a little camp up near Sugarloaf outside of Kingfield. These folks called, they were looking for solar on their home in Freeport, which really didn't have a good roof, had a lot of shading. And this is back when we were doing residential rooftop solar too. And it was a tough one. I mean, a guy really didn't have a lot of opportunity. They were really committed to doing solar, and he loved the solar shed ideas. And he mentioned, hey, I've got a little ski camp up near Sugarloaf. He's like, well, I could actually use the building. So this one's part bunkhouse, part storage, and all the power generation is credited to his home account back down in Freeport. So it's kind of a really cool idea. Worked well for him and his family. Another really common application that we see that I'm really fond of is when people are building a new home. A lot of the times we'll deliver a main solar shed. We offer, gravel pad installation and new electric meters, underground, overhead. So we can establish electrical service and a place to store stuff for the construction process before your home's built. People have really liked that. And builders really like it too. And so this is a adaptation we did last year. We started delivering the Bigelows to a concrete floor with a knee wall to get a little extra wall height, and it makes a great garage. This one's right in downtown Topsom. It was a fun project. We've done 2 like this so far. The delivery is super easy. It just slides right out onto the concrete knee wall, and the garage door needs to be installed after the fact, but otherwise, you know, 1-day garage installation versus having a contractor come and build one on site. It was a slam dunk and makes the homes power as well. So that was a great one. And then this one we'll come back to. We just threw this slide in. This is a new product for us this year. So you guys are the first ones to see this. And so this is going to be a off-grid solar shed. So it's got about a 45-degree roof to maximize winter gain. And it's fully built with the insulated building with battery bank and a solar arc inverter inside. So these can be delivered, you know, throughout the North Maine woods. We get a lot of phone calls for people with remote power needs. And it's really, really hard to travel the state to put up 6 solar panels. It's just not economically viable. And so we've been mulling this over for years, and we're sticking our toes in the water, and we'll see what happens. So awesome. Thank you guys so much. I'm looking forward to seeing your questions. So it's really interesting. There's a lot of rules in the National Electric Code on solar on roofs. And so that building, those windows are actually just going to be insulated in and blacked out on the inside. You can't actually dwell in a building with this slope roof. So this is a solar specific building. There's a caveat in the NEC code that allows like solar specific spaces to be used like this. So installing off-grid systems on the roof of dwellings is really, really challenging now with some rules around DC conductors. It's a bit complicated. We could go in, we don't need to go into it. But this building is designed to basically be, you know, a fully delivered operating ground mounted solar system with, you know, an AC disconnect on the side of the building to pipe over to the existing camp. It's got a plug-in on the outside for a generator. We definitely offer standby generators, auto start generators. So this is basically just a battery room. Yep. And you know, you can store some stuff in it too. This building's not huge. It's 10 by 14 foot.
That's great. I love your product. I tell you that every time. I think you're really filling, both of you really filling a nice niche. So thanks for chatting with us about that. And it looks like Thomas has joined us. So Thomas, are you there? All right. So let's jump into some questions while we wait for Thomas. This is a good general question, I think, to kick us off. One of the viewers was asking if there's a specific number of hours of direct sun that a property needs to receive before pretty much being viable for solar, like before solar being a good option.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on the amount of electricity they use, you know, so it's very important to see what their consumption is. You know, our niche is those that are larger consumers, you know, ones that are heating large spaces with heat pumps and maybe have an EV in the future. But there's a lot of homes out there that consume very little energy. You know, I'm not sure if they heat with wood or pellets or what have you. So depending on your home's usage really depends on the amount of light you require. There's a great app out there that's a PV Watt that we can take a look at weather conditions at the site for the past 30 years and get a great average of what you might produce. And then, of course, there's other apps that show us the sun's path wintertime and summertime at that location. And so even with our trackers, we've been able to utilize that app and then minimize a tree or two to take down so that we can open up a space if that's available. And it's not a matter of taking down a whole bunch of trees, but it's a matter of seeing where the sun comes up in winter and the summer, and kind of minimize that. But the electrical assumption of the location is really pretty important when it comes to that.
Matt, this next one really ties into your last slide, but we've had a couple people ask for options that are not grid tied. So can you talk about that a little bit in terms of the solar sheds? Is that most recent model the only one that's not grid tied, or can you do it with any of them?
So for people with like summer use, like summer camps, we've done the Bigelow and the Bigelow Light for off-grid applications. And historically, we actually have had another solar contractor who is family to me, which is Maine Solar Solutions, which has done a great job in the off-grid market in Maine for a long time. They've actually done the balance of the system inside. So that. I don't think that's the end of that. They may still be doing that, but we've done the Bigelow, but it has a pretty low roof. So it really only works in the summertime. That's like the drawback. It's really great for a grid tied application. So the off-grid one is sort of new. We just built that just to sort of experiment with it. And we have a lot of experience with off-grid stuff. We're actually the contractor that does all the off-grid power systems in Baxter State Park and remote power systems for the Federal Aviation Administration, which has like 60 remote power sites in Maine. So this is a little bit new that we're going to do the residential market with this technology, but it's pretty exciting. We're pretty, it could be, a big part of what we do. We don't know yet.
Yeah, that's great. Ryan, can you do an off-grid setup with the trackers?
Yeah, we can. We couple it with batteries, and depending on the system, we've done one, and we have a lot of interest up in northern Maine, again for space constraints and what have you. But we just couple it with batteries, and the nice, there's the downside to the trackers in the air. It is a pretty decent sized structure, but part of that is because it can power batteries up quite quickly. A few good hours of sun, and you can power those batteries right up to full, and then they can last you significant amount of days. And so it's a big thing up in the Greenville Rangeley area, where they don't have everything is off grid, and they're looking to maybe have a home or second home or a camp that's got the conveniences of air conditioning and heating and all these other things that we're getting used to. But so yes, we certainly can.
Great. Thomas, it's looking good. I can see you and you're moving, so that must mean that you're no longer frozen. So can we launch into your slides?
Yeah, great to join you this morning. I guess it's the afternoon at this point. I'm Thomas Tutor. I grew up on an island in Maine where self-sufficiency was really part of my childhood. I've been helping Mainers figure out their most practical options for kicking their fossil fuel habits for the last decade. And, we're in a really exciting period, in the world. We're in the process of transitioning from fossil fuel powered civilization to a clean energy powered one. And, the transition is inevitable, but the faster we accomplish it, the more money we save and the better we leave the planet for future generations. So the next couple slides here, I'll quickly introduce Revision. We got over 400 employee owners. We started in Maine. Majority of our employees work here in Maine, but we also have a presence in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, and we became 100% employee owned in 2017. If you keep going, you'll see to the next slide, you'll see we've almost reached the 20,000 mark of projects installed. So that is, majority of those are residential solar projects, but we also install battery storage, heat pumps, water heaters, EV chargers, and member-owned community solar farms, which is what I'm going to talk about today. If you go to the next slide. So member-owned community solar is true ownership community solar. So it's for a variety of Mainers who, for some reason or another are not looking for panels on their roof or in their yard. And maybe they don't own their roof, or they're part of an HOA or a condo association that doesn't allow them to put solar on their roof. Maybe they just don't like the look of the panels, or they need to re-roof or do other structural upgrades that they don't want to do. So I really love ownership community solar because it is inclusive and it maximizes the long-term wealth creation for Mainers and keeps the positive economic ripple effects of clean energy investment in our state. Next slide will show, there are two types of community solar out there. Everyone in Maine has received many mailers for subscription community solar. That's the one on the left here. That's where some other investor builds, owns, and operates that solar project, and they need Maine electric bills to send that energy to. So the investor takes the tax credit there. You don't pay any upfront cost to join those. It does take about 3 months to exit, and you do get, somewhere between 10 to 15% savings on your electric bill, but your electric bills continue to rise with increasing rates. So on the other hand, member-owned community solar, you own an individual share in a project built in CMP territory. You are then eligible for the 30% federal tax credit. So you really get far more savings over the long term. And you can, resell or gift that share. You can also bring it with you if you move within CMP territory. And you can also, downsize that share if you are, downsizing your electric load, or we have many members who add additional shares to cover their electric usage once they, fully electrify their homes. So on the next slide, this is just an example of Curreville Solar Farm that we built in Knox, Maine. And, we size a share based on someone's electric bill, their load, and their budget. And it is as if, you owned those green highlighted panels there. And so every month, the generation from those panels flows into the grid, and the credits flow to your electric bill. It's the same credit mechanism that you receive if you have credits on your own house or your own yard. But you get the economies of scale of joining about 100 other Mainers in owning a large farm like this one. On the next slide, you'll see, all we need is a copy of your electric bill in order to size your share. So we'll determine how much energy you use in kilowatt hours, and also discuss additional electrification potential for you as you think about, heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, electric vehicles. And if you also, take the time to measure your on-site potential for solar. If you have a sunny roof or field, you might have a stronger investment opportunity there than in a member-owned community solar farm. And we offer all kinds of solar, so we can help you compare the different options. I think my house is a good example where I put 24 panels on my roof, which did cover all of my usage before I started a family and we started driving Chevy Bolts. And now I just actually signed a contract to get into our next member-owned farm that we're building right now to cover the remainder, basically cover my driving with clean electrons rather than electrons that I'm paying CMP for. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see just an example of, the full electricity bill savings. You do pay the membership costs because you're owner of this farm. So you pay your portion of the lease payment to the landowner, liability insurance, and, annual maintenance, basically mowing around the farm and, making sure that it's operating at peak efficiency. If you go to the next slide, we'll look a little bit more at the comparison in costs. So on the left here, you've got a solar farm if you are not going to finance it. And if you look at what you pay to purchase a share in that farm and you divide it over the kilowatt hours that it's going to produce for you over 25 years, then you're going to pay 12 cents a kilowatt hour for that clean electricity. So that's really thinking of it as pre-buying your electricity for 25 years, and you pay 12 cents a kilowatt hour. You can see the next bar, if you finance it, you've got to pay some interest and finance costs, and that brings that cost up to about 15 cents a kilowatt hour. In this particular example comparison, an on-site solar project is slightly more expensive, and so you get 13 cents a kilowatt hour there, and 16 cents a kilowatt hour if you finance it. We have a lot of customers that are financing both, rooftop and member-owned community solar, because you can really trade your current electric bill for a loan payment, or some people put some money down and then they've got clearly lower monthly bills, next month after the project's completed than they do right now. And then you can see the two bars on the right, just as comparison, utility rate today is over 23 cents a kilowatt hour. And over the last 20 years, it has basically doubled. It's gone up about 4 cents. 4% per year on average. If you just assume a 3% annual escalator, then it's basically going to double again in the next 25 years, to be closer to that 47, 48 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's where, pre-buying your electricity is extremely valuable for the long term. I got just a couple more slides if you want to go to the next one. Thank you. I think it's really important that we think about where we're putting these solar farms. And there's been, I think rightfully concern that, solar is taking up, valuable farmland. We work with local Maine landowners. In our experience, no one's going to put solar on their most productive farmland. What we see is that farms have an array of different land, and some of it is, less productive, more marginal, often along roadways or other areas that it just has never been as productive for them. And hosting a solar farm for those Maine farmers allows this revenue stream and really resiliency to pass the farm on to the next generation, to shield it from other development pressures, like housing, and really allows for this diversified farm. So they're farming sunshine, more directly, in addition to the other ways that they're, growing food for all of us. So if we go to the next slide, I think it's important just to put it in perspective a little bit. There's a bunch of information on this slide, but if you look at the tiny little dots in Maine on the bottom left corner, that is the smaller dot represents how much land we would need to take up in Maine, if we were going to cover all existing electric bills with solar, and we were going to put it all on the ground in one big ground mount. It would take up that small dot. If we were going to fully electrify transportation and heating and cooling, which we need to, then we would need a slightly larger dot. That's the other one. The comparison is that the high density urban land that's already, high density urban right now in Maine is more space than that larger dot. So obviously the more that we put solar on rooftops and parking lots and solar sheds and trackers, the less that we take up that way. But I think it's important for us to realize that it's not a massive amount of land that we need to produce our own clean energy. We don't have any fossil fuel energy really in our state anyway. And, to reach our clean energy goals, I think we need to realize that solar is a great neighbor. It adds no strain to water, sewer, traffic. It adds no pollution, including light or noise, and a fence or other buffer can be planted to block it from view if needed. So next slide, please. Just to kind of wrap it up, this is another way to think about solar. My background's in economics, so I love graphs, so I've been sharing a bunch of them here. But the other way to think about this, if you pay $145 a month for your electric bill now, then your budget for the next 25 years is about 60 grand. That's on the left side. A subscription solar farm share will lower that cost, 10 to 15%. So that'll be somewhere, between 37,000 if electricity prices don't change for 25 years, or up to 53,000 if they follow that 3% annual trend that we expect. And then the middle bar is if, prices don't change at all, then you should expect to spend 40 grand for your electricity for the next 25 years. And then you got, 2 solar options on the far side, whether you are paying some interest and financing it and not having to pay that out of pocket, or if you have anything in savings, especially the stock market or other areas which are extremely volatile and uncertain right now. Solar is an amazing way to put that money, not like take it out of the bank and stuff it in your mattress, but put it up on your roof, where it's saving you money every month and adding to the resale value of your home and contributing to our local clean energy economy. Instead of us spending, I think it's roughly $4 billion that Mainers send out of state every year for fossil fuel energy. So every solar project, we are spending that money in our local communities and saving that money for future generations. And I think that is my last slide. Oh yeah, this one went along with what I was just saying about comparing solar to an investment. That bottom line is if you took out 25 grand and put it into a stock market that guaranteed 7% annual returns, which I think most people would be pretty excited about right now. If you instead financed a solar project, you can see you actually can pay no money down. That's the dark blue line. And you pay slightly less than you do now for 20 years. And then you save all that money and you're still significantly better off than that 7% stock market return example. And if you have the money to invest in solar instead of in stocks, then you get that orange line, which is the best long-term savings for you. So just apologize for the technical difficulties here, but glad to join and important to be learning about these different ways to power our lives. So thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, Thomas. That was great. And really all 3 of these approaches are fabulous solutions for the challenges of not having an ideal roof space for solar. So thank you. And let's dive into a few more questions. We have about 15 minutes. We can do questions. Matt, somebody is asking for us to elaborate on how the you had mentioned in the example of the ski house that they put the solar shed up at the ski house and they're able to use those credits on their home in southern Maine. So could you just say a little bit more about exactly what happens there? Because I know that applies to actually all 3 of the solutions. So
yeah, I mean, it's a phenomenal part of the current Maine solar policy. And I encourage people a lot of people aren't aware of that. So within utility districts, you can transfer credits from one point of generation to other accounts that are also in the same name. So the account does need to be in the same name. I think you can expand it a little bit through a solar farm. I think Thomas probably have a better application for that. Like, he probably better answer on how that can go to non-family members and organizations and stuff like that. But most of our customers, we're doing a project right now in Orland that's going to offset the customer's energy use at their home in Portland because they don't have a roof. They own the land in Orland. They intend to build a house there eventually. And in the interim, now they've got a building that they can, camp out in while they're there, and it generates power. And as Thomas's slide showed, it's a great place to put some money right now where, what you're going to get out of it. Solar panels, I was going to say don't have moving parts, but Ryan's here have some moving parts, but really it's just like a rock stuck to a piece of glass, an aluminum frame. They really don't break. There's no wear and tear items on our solar sheds. So you're pretty well guaranteed what that return on investment is. In 25 years, I've seen like 2 bad solar panels. Inverters are a different story, but they're not as expensive to fix as a solar array. So it's kind of nice. And you can transfer those credits to an account somewhere else. And a lot of people just don't know that. So thanks for the question.
Yeah. And Thomas, thank you also for mentioning the 2 different types of solar farms, community solar farms, because I think that can be confusing for people. I personally have solar panels on my garage, but they don't cover the full need of my house. So I actually have a subscription community solar setup that offsets that. So it's just a really nice option for folks who maybe rent or don't have the access to capital to benefit from some savings. Like I think I save 15% with mine. So you're supporting solar, but without the ownership. So I'm glad you mentioned that as the other option. We chose to focus on ownership today, but there is another option, which is the subscription model. So thank you for mentioning that. Let's see, let's dive into some other questions here. Thomas, do community solar projects allow an HOA with some electric infrastructure to invest or join as a member? I think you said you did work with some HOAs.
Yes. So, I mean, that's really the beauty of member-owned community solar is that if you are connected to CMP and paying a CMP bill, then you can benefit from one of our member-owned farms. So as Matt was talking about, with net metering in Maine, you could also in Versant as well. We have built a couple farms in Versant territory, but we don't currently have any under construction right now. So that's why I'm focusing on CMP. But if you're anywhere within CMP territory, then you can receive kilowatt hour credits from your farm share on your monthly bill. And that's the exact same mechanism that, I receive for my 24 panels that make power on my roof. Some of my power on my roof is consumed behind my meter in real time. So that's solar self-consumption. And then during the middle part of a day, that excess power flows back into the grid. And that's when I get credits for when the sun's not shining. I get to pull back from the grid and work off those credits. So with a member-owned farm, you are relying on net metering for 100% of that solar generation. So every kilowatt hour that your farm share sends into the grid, you receive those kilowatt hours monthly on your bill. And just like rooftop or sheds or trackers, in the summer, you bank excess credits and then you start working through your credit bank during the winter months. And if you size a share to cover 100% of your annual consumption, then you just pay your minimum connection fee to CMP because you have produced the same amount of kilowatt hours over the course of the year as that you've consumed. So yeah, anyone that has an electric bill in CMP territory can cover that bill with solar credits from a member-owned community solar farm.
Great. Next one's for you, Ryan. Betsy is asking, does the solar tracker need to be near your building, or could you put the tracker on a different property and use the credits for your home? Actually, I guess this gets to the answer we just listened to, but does it need to be near the building?
No, we do a lot of them that are on other properties or vacant land. We've done a few that we just put a meter pedestal and the people put up another meter and then they put several accounts on that. Again, whether it be a family member, they can do a percentage or they can do cascading. Here at the shop, we have 3 trackers and that pays for our bills, but then we cascade our employees on the trackers that the extra power we produce. So it doesn't have to be on site. It can be on vacant land, or it can be in the backyard. Again, we've done 600-700 feet from the home's pedestal, so it can be a distance.
Great, thank you. This next question is about whether you are seeing anyone using hempcrete as an alternative to the concrete in the bases for trackers.
I haven't looked into that. Great question. I did know that hempcrete was out there. I'm not sure if Auburn Concrete, that's who we typically use. We utilize about 11 yards per tracker of the large trackers, but I'm not sure if they do that. I did know that was out there, but that's a great question that I can get back to them on if they want to leave a email address or something.
Great, thank you. All right. We We have a few questions from viewers asking about specific situations to their properties, but they may apply to others. So let's dive into those. The first one says that she has a flat roof with loads of southern exposure and a small yard. She would like panels, but doesn't want a huge array in the yard space. What options does she have? So, Thomas, it sounds like she's definitely a good candidate for a solar farm share.
Yep, exactly. And actually, on that last question, I was just going to mention there is some interesting products with alternatives to concrete that we've used for large ground mounted systems on landfills. So actually, the South Portland landfill project, you can go see that one. And when we're building solar on a landfill, we can't puncture the landfill. So like we do on non-landfill projects, we actually just put earth screws in the ground, so we don't use any concrete. But on a landfill, we've got to use a ballasted system that used to be chunks of poured concrete as sort of these pads that are floating on top that hold the array. The South Portland project and increasingly our other projects, we're doing these baskets of stone so that perform the same purpose, but they're just big blocks of stone in these metal cages instead of concrete. So just an interesting point there. But yeah, if you're, one of the things that we do all the time is evaluate people's roofs. And, if you have a flat roof on a residential roof, it's usually a little more expensive and often won't be as compelling an economic investment in solar as a member-owned community solar farm share, but that's something that we can evaluate for you and show you both options to see what it would cost to do either one and which one is more appealing for you given the different characteristics. But yeah, something that we'd be happy to check out for you.
And I guess we should mention on the concrete comments. So for folks who don't know, cement, which makes up a big part of concrete, is very carbon intensive. And so there's a lot of research and interest right now in producing concrete that isn't as carbon intensive. And so that's where the hempcrete comes into play, and lots of other aggregates are being explored. So a little more information on that. Next question comes from Paula, and she says the sunniest area on her property is in front of her house, and she's wondering if she can hide solar panels behind shrubbery. So I'm guessing this probably depends on how much space she has behind the shrubbery, but has anyone ever dealt with a situation like this?
Yeah, I can jump in first and then let others go. Our fixed ground mounted solar installations are about 11 or 12 feet tall. So you can certainly plant behind them or in front of them as long as don't begin shading them. But if you think about, a hedge that's, 10 to 12 feet tall, then you could completely shield a solar project. I always find that the front, where you're looking at the panels, to me looks cool and interesting. The back is the part that is, has the wires and racking and isn't quite as sexy. So certainly we have customers plant things to block that or orient them, back up to the edge of a field, depending on what the environment is there. But yeah, quite easy to block panels with something that's 10, 12 feet tall.
Ours are pretty elevated, so they're not in eyes view as much, but if you look up, they're definitely there.
Okay. All right, another question for you, Ryan, while we have you. Clifford is asking whether your clients have had any issues with insurance not covering damage, such as from hail, damage to panels because they are not attached to the dwelling. Have you had any experience with that, and how do you advise customers to check with their insurance?
Yeah, that comes up on almost all of our projects. That question comes up, so it's very common. But they literally will send the proposal, our proposal for the unit, to the insurance company, and they add a rate to their homeowners. And on average, they've been adding a few $100s to their policy to cover the array as well. So it hasn't been a problem.
Matt, Betsy is asking, since the shed is not locked down, how does that work with natural disasters and insurance?
So the code for these doesn't require them to be locked down. We do have some that are locked down. We've put quite a few onto concrete slabs to be used as garages. There's a few on knee walls, and there's actually several on full foundations with like basements under them, daylight basements. It's actually kind of a cool application. Since it's not a dwelling, I think you're referring to like a trailer tie down kit, like on an ADU is sort of what I'm guessing you're getting at. I mean, they weigh about 18,000 pounds. They're definitely not going to blow away.
All right, well, I am realizing that we have come to the end of our hour, so I think that we're going to have to pause on questions. And thank you all for joining us today. This was really, really informative. And also just thank you for what you're doing. You know, the products that you are providing as options for folks. This is really great. So it seems like they're really very, maybe not even any situations where you can't benefit from solar power, given all of the options that are available. So thanks again for joining us today. And thank you to our sponsor, Royal River Heat Pumps, and our webinar producer, Rain Rayner, who handles everything so beautifully behind the scenes. If you're interested in learning more about future Home and Energy Chat episodes and catching up on recordings from past episodes, you can do that on our website, greenmainehomes.com. You can also sign up for a newsletter there, get our socials,